Over the last few months, I've had a lot of questions about the LS swapped Blue 95 Cheyenne I've got. So I thought to answer maybe more questions or with better detail or with clarity, I just do a quick walk around of the truck this morning and just kind of try to show everything that I've done to it. Talk about those things so you'd have a better idea of the whole picture instead of just bits and pieces. Made some notes so that I can kind of keep up with my thoughts about the truck. First of all, I've already got the hood kind of cracked open, so that's why it's sitting the way it is. It's got a 2.4 drop, and I want to take a look at the suspension and see what's been done to that for that 2-inch drop. Underneath, got a little light under here, that helps. I've got some JDM upper and lower control arms. The lower control arms feature a 2-inch drop, so that's the drop right there. Stock spindles, Monroe Gas Magnum shocks. Let's see, the springs are stock. All the steering has been replaced with Moog components, and we've also got a Beltec front sway bar. So that's everything up front in the suspension that I can think of. Ball joints, bushings, everything brand new. The JDM suspension parts do feature polyurethane bushings, and I've heard a lot of people that have problems with them squeaking. I have not had an issue. You just got to make sure that they're lubricated properly. On the front wheels and tires and brakes, the brakes are power stop. I believe it's a Z24 powder coated red calipers and the drilled and slotted rotors. They stop just fine. The wheels are American Racing 17x7 with a 4-inch backspace. The tires are Falcons, let's see, they're a 235/60/17. And moving to the back, it's a 4-inch drop. Traditional, just hangers in front, shackles in back. The shocks are drop shocks from JDM as well. There is a Beltec rear sway bar under there, and a little dirty. I've been driving it quite a bit. The sway bar helps out a lot. The rear wheels are 17x8 American Racing. They've got a 5-inch backspace, and the tires are Falcons and they're 265/60/17s. You notice I got the disc brakes, and that is a Little Shop manufacturing kit. I originally bought that kit because it can be installed without having to pull the rear axles. However, when I got into it, my rear axle seals were leaking. Had to replace them anyway, so it didn't make any difference. And I pulled the bed off to do all this. Just made it a lot easier. And while I was at it, I went ahead and replaced the fuel pump. There are some dings and scratches and stuff on the truck, but it is the original 25-year-old paint. And let's see, let's take a look under the hood. A number of points here, so if I jump around, please excuse me a bit. I want to cover the motor mounts. They're really hard to see. I couldn't find a good angle that you could see them at, but they are Metaltech manufacturing sliding mounts, so they look kind of like the Dirty Dingoes, and it uses a stock Chevy clamshell that mounts to the frame. The engine's 5.3. It came out of a 2001 Chevy Tahoe. I bought the whole truck. Had been T-boned, ran and drove. It's got the Z motor, which is the flex fuel, which really doesn't mean a whole lot, except that it does have slightly larger fuel injectors than the LM7. It's got, let's see, a Brian Tooley Racing Stage 1 truck cam in it. And I replaced all the main gaskets, such as the intake manifold, water pump, front cover, valve covers, exhaust manifolds, those sorts of things. I just didn't want any leaks. Oil pan is a LS3 takeoff. And let me see if I can get under here and you can get a better shot of that. It is a very low profile oil pan. In fact, it sits up higher than the transmission pan, which is nice because in a truck like this, if you've lowered the front and you have a stock truck oil pan, it'll hang down below the crossmember, and that can cause you some problems. Let's see, electric fans. I've got twin electric fans. I bought those off of eBay. I think it's about 110 bucks. In fact, I bought another set for the new project, just like it because they work so well. They're set up by the computer to go off at 185 and 195. And the radiator is a stock replacement 28-inch wide core for the 95 truck. Air conditioning. I've got, that's a stock type rotary R4 compressor that came on my V6 originally. That's a new compressor. But the bracket that is mounting it is the original bracket. I had to modify it to fit, which is very easy to do. And then you have to make a couple of braces to support it. And here in the back, kind of hard to see them, but here's one. And there's another one here, and of course I painted them black so they're hard to see. And there's one more in the front. I'll move my radiator hose. And it's just right there. It supports, it's kind of dark in there. Kind of supports the from the water pump brace to the bracket itself. It works great. It's mostly an original AC hose. I had to have it shortened a little bit. And this is the original manifold for the AC compressor, and they just modified the fittings here and shortened the hoses to work. And that was like, I think, 70 bucks for that. The wiring harness I had modified by Chris at Easy EFI Solutions. He did a nice job for me. We mounted the PCM over here, driver's side front corner of the truck. And it fits in that area pretty nicely. These are the relays that are for the electric fans. For your air conditioning to work properly, I had wired in a relay for that, and I have a separate video on how to do that. Because you really need to have that fan come on when you turn on your air conditioning or you'll burn it up. The oil pressure sensor, I can't see it, but back in there, it is the original that was on my 4.3. I just used an adapter to adapt it to the metric block. The coolant sensor down here is a 3-wire unit for I believe it's about a 98 Camaro in that same age range Corvette. It's a 3-wire because your Tahoe has a 2-wire. So 2 of the wires go to the Tahoe wires to communicate with the PCM. That 3rd wire is for the gauge. And on the 4.3 there's a separate sensor and 2 sensors, one for the gauge and one for the actual temperature. And you have to find that wire for the temperature sensor gauge in order to tap into that. Easy to do. I have a video about that as well. Let's see, the AC relay, cruise control. It looks like my original. Actually, it's not. This is a unit out of a 2001 Chevy Tahoe, and the only difference is that the cable that attaches to the throttle body is longer, because the one on my V6 truck, the throttle body is back this way. Otherwise, it plugged in and works perfect. I mean, that was an easy swap. See, the master cylinder, you may have noticed that's a little different. That's actually a 2002 Tahoe master cylinder, although it's a new one. And I put that in because with the rear disc brakes, if you didn't do that, you were going to have to plumb in a proportioning valve to control the flow of fluid to the rear front bias, whereas with that master cylinder, that takes that into consideration and handles it. I can't think of a whole lot else. It went in pretty simple. I did most everything by myself, so that proves it can be done. So let's just do a cold startup. We'll go back to the exhaust. Got a little bit of a lope to it, not a lot, but just enough, and it's got a lot of low and mid-range. Runs great. I have no trouble with overheating whatsoever. The thermostat goes up, or I should say the sensor, the gauge, goes up to where it's always gone. As you can see in here, tach works. If I was moving, the speedometer would work. Your fuel gauge and battery are directly tied into the wiring that's in the truck, so you don't want to cut out anything until you get everything running first, because all your grounds are very important. Temperature will come up in a moment. Always runs cool. Oil pressure is good. Overall, I'm very pleased with it, and it's a lot of fun. It's hard to say exactly what gas mileage I get because I keep putting my foot into it because it's so fun to drive, and I'm sure that hurts me a little bit. But anyway, well, I appreciate your time. Just wanted to bring you up to speed. I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks for watching.